So I hope you've already had a bit of a chance to have a chat with some people, get yourself some drinks and some nibbles. And then obviously now we're going to sit down for the panel discussion, which will also be followed by a Q&A. That'll take around 60 minutes, so about an hour. And then after that, you can go get a few more drinks, do a little bit more mingling before you go home. And then sweet. So for those of you that are new to Soda Social, Soda Social is our innovative networking platform, and it allows us and you to engage with us in our sort of digital world in like a relaxed and informative and light-hearted way. Our aim is to empower you guys as our future leaders in our digital community. So it's really great to see all of you here tonight. Soda Social is powered by Trust and Soda. For those of you that don't know Trust and Soda, we're a recruitment agency in the digital space. One of the areas that we recruit within is marketing, but we work with some really innovative and cool companies and brands as well. But yeah, tonight I'm super excited to be joined by this lovely little panel here. We've got some really interesting thought leaders from different industries, somebody from a really exciting, fast-growing fintech, people from big known companies like LinkedIn, and then also have worked with really cool brands and really cool music artists as well. So we'll get onto that, which is pretty cool. But that's enough from me. I'll pass it over and let them introduce themselves. So John, please kick us off. Who are you? And what's your favourite Christmas advert of all time to keep it seasonal?
Yeah, is this on and working?
I don't think so.
There we go. It's been a while since I've been up here. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Williamson, Senior Content Marketing Consultant at LinkedIn. I'm reading my own job title here. I think that's what I do. How long have I got? Have I got a minute, did you say? Or less
a minute would be great.
To tell them about me?
Yeah.
Or, okay, right. So, yeah, my main role at LinkedIn is I work with some of our key clients globally on their content strategy. So if you think of any brands from like HSBC to Audi to Deutsche Bank to TikTok to Microsoft to whoever, I help them with their brand and their content and basically how they show up on our platform, looking at different strategies. My favorite, well, I've been at LinkedIn 4.5 years, but my favorite Christmas advert, this is hard for me, but I'm going to say, I'm going back a bit here. This is like into the early realms of ASMR, right? Check me, because it was the M&S advert, Marks and Spencer's. You know that this isn't just, you know, with the Fleetwood Mac song and just the food really close up. This isn't just a chocolate fudge cake. This is that. Little known fact is that was actually launched at Christmas, like, and it obviously went crazy. And I just think something like that was so simple, effective, different, but also made you just really want to eat everything they sold. So yeah, I think props on all levels there for M&S. I'll hand it over.
Hello, so I'm Brooke Day, and I'm the head of content at PensionBee. I've been there for about a year now. For anybody that doesn't know, PensionBee is an online pension provider that is helping to make everyone have a happy retirement by simplifying pensions. And my favourite Christmas ad, I actually was really torn between two, because when I was thinking about it, the things that stand out for me are things that are emotive or, you know, nostalgic. So I've kind of got two. One is the Man on the Moon, John Lewis ad. Anyone that knows me, I've got people that I work with and friends within the audience. I love old people, so that was me. I was bawling from minute one. I think it also really explains like death in a really simple way at a really challenging time of year for people. So I really love that. No, I think it's important.
No, it's so deep, but so right. I love it.
And then, oh, you'll like this one then. Then I've got Sainsbury's, the 1914 ad. It was the centenary of the end of World War I. And I just think it's really important for us to have a reminder, a really commercial time of year of how lucky we are and things that went before us. So yeah, for me, they're kind of the two.
Hi guys, I'm Rami. I own a marketing agency called Two Tab Social. So I've been doing that for about 5 years. Before that, I was working at Sony Music. So some of the artists I have worked with in the past include like Little Mix, Pot of Paper. I work with labels as well, so Warner, Sony, Def Jam, all the like major record labels in the UK, and events, so Live Nation. There's quite a few, but I feel like you might not know them. But there's one called DLT Brunch. We just had a festival of WizKid at Malta, so I don't know if you know WizKid is, but yeah, I'm sure you do. But yeah, it was amazing. So I kind of create campaigns, social campaigns, digital marketing campaigns, and obviously liaise with artists as well to, you know, help their brand grow. And we had a call earlier about the Christmas ads, and mine's still the same as yours. I love the John Lewis advert. It's actually really amazing. It really made me want to call all the old people in my life. Like, it actually had such a good impact on me. So and I think that's what adverts are about. It makes you like reflect and stuff. So that's one of my favorite adverts, the John Lewis Age UK one.
Thank you so much. These guys are so cool, aren't they? I do not feel like I should be up here. But hi, I'm Sophie. I run an online community called Pretty Little Marketer. It is an online space for people in social media and on social media to just come and learn and be themselves and kind of keep up with this crazy world of digital, as we'll be speaking about tonight. I totally misinterpreted our first question. I thought the question was, what is our favorite Christmas advert from this year? And suddenly thinking back, I've forgotten every single Christmas advert I have ever seen. So I'm going to give the answer to the question I thought it was. We had a round table last week or the week before, and we were kind of discussing all of our favorite ads from this year. And my initial answer was the Asda Elf advert. Have you guys seen that one? So awesome. But I have to say John Lewis totally came along and topped it. If you haven't seen their Christmas advert this year, it's absolutely beautiful. Really love how they've taken the spotlight off of hey, this is us, we're awesome, our ads are groundbreaking, and actually we're going to share our platform this year with a really awesome and beautiful charity. So yeah, it kind of captures the essence of Christmas, and I really loved that. So yeah, excited to be here.
And thank you very much for coming. There's 2 mics, by the way, if you want to share them around. But for the first topic tonight, we're going to hand it over to you to get us started. So the first topic we're really going to dive into tonight is content and how we consume it. So I'm really interested to see what platform you guys enjoy consuming content on the most.
Better be LinkedIn. Damn.
So far, no votes for LinkedIn.
This is looking great, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh.
So we'd have some people in the audience now.
6%. That's probably Dean at the back, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we're going to drop down here.
I think it's different. I downloaded. For me, last time, no, I just thought it
They want a chance to join the slide.
Yeah. Okay, so this is really interesting to see, especially because the Content Marketing Institute recently published a survey that said marketers have said that video content is a lot more successful these days. And I think 73% of marketers said that. It's really interesting to see that from your guys' point of view as well, that TikTok is the main one up there and they literally only do videos. So that's really interesting. So how have the likes of Instagram and TikTok contributed to this visual storytelling approach? And where do you think you see these platforms going in the next year or so? Rami, do you want to kick us off?
I would, because obviously in terms of my campaigns, we kind of tailor our rollouts based on obviously how people consume content and so forth. So I would say TikTok is a central platform for all of our marketing campaigns. And we were saying this earlier, I feel like I'm old, I'm 31. So when TikTok first came out, I was just like, this is for little kids, but I had to immerse myself in it and get lost in it. But then when I started doing it, and the way, even just how the algorithm works and how it delivers content, I literally can spend hours on TikTok. It's actually really amazing.
It's so easy to spend a whole day there.
To get off TikTok. But I feel like it's amazing. I think obviously short form video, I saw a lot of people, kind of frustrated on Twitter talking about how Instagram is just video only and they can't see their friends' content. But the data does show that video form is working, short form. Obviously, YouTube has rolled out YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram Reels, and whatnot. But those do work. Those are how people do really engage with content. In terms of how I work with TikTok. So with TikTok is quite central to my campaigns. So even when we're delivering, rollouts, we would use TikTok and the sounds and, deliver different versions of audio. So if there's an official song, we would do a slowed down reverb version that we'll deliver to influencers. So they will use on their content and will pretend that, they just picked it up and, it starts to go a bit viral. So it's quite central. It's really the center of our content and how we roll it out.
No, I think it's a similar thing that we're seeing, which is funny because I never thought FinTok would be a thing. And when I joined Pension Bee at the beginning of the year, and I was tasked with, let's use TikTok, I was like, how on earth is that going to work? Like, I can see how it works if you're an artist and you're cool, or LinkedIn, or yeah. But, you know, there's challenges, but pensions can be on TikTok, which is what we've seen. But we use more of a distribution platform. So when we're working on our podcast, the Pension Confident podcast, we'll create snippets and we'll answer key financial questions and we'll put it on there. And actually what we're seeing is that on TikTok, there's this unregulated area where people want to know financial questions and answers. And whilst we can't give advice, I think it's important for us to be a player in that space, to be like, here are some of the questions you're answering. We're working with key brands and products and partners in that space, and we're going to try and help you decipher some of the confusing industry that we're in.
So, John, I'd be really keen to hear your sort of perspectives from a LinkedIn point of view, because we've got to ask. What types of content have you seen perform really well on LinkedIn, and what things do you think we're probably going to like leave behind in 2022?
Well, we're going to start being more like TikTok. No, I think it's super interesting what Brooke was saying, is that like what she's done with a brand like Pension Bee is so cool, and how you shift that to something like TikTok to get that engagement, and super cool. So props to you for that. And with LinkedIn, we try and do exactly the same with so many different businesses. And I think when it comes to sort of the changes and what we've seen work and what hasn't worked, is that yes, LinkedIn is more long form when it comes to content. So your videos can be longer. We've got documents, you know, your imagery and all of that. What we do is try and create or make the world of work fun in some respects, but we also look at the consumer aspect as well. And we've seen a huge shift in being more authentic, less polished, right? Work with some huge brands who have said, we just don't really want to be this corporate image anymore, which I understand is super hard sometimes, especially when you can be a big, you know, oil company or something like that. It can be really tough. But however, what we do see is this huge change where brands are just saying, we want to be more people focused, people orientated, care about our customers, care about not that our investors, our employees, everything like that, which is so important. So more authenticity in brands is becoming more sort of, you know, so key for some of the biggest brands. And that's what we've seen, you know, a lot. I've seen a lot of changes from some of the biggest brands out there in the world that have gone down that route rather than millions and millions of pounds on huge campaigns, right? It just depends about the message as well. I feel like you've got something to say.
No. You can open.
I love what you were saying, John, about like that authenticity piece. I feel like in marketing, we see the word all the time. It's almost become a bit of a buzzword at this point. But I think that's one of the reasons why, for me and a lot of my clients, really love TikTok and this whole video piece so much, is because I don't just see like a makeup product anymore, like polished, beautiful, looking awesome, but I can see TikToks of people taking them apart and cleaning the palette, or I can see my favorite influencers putting it on, and that real human connection that you don't just get with a static image or a text post on somewhere like Twitter. You can actually see real people. So now my favorite influencers or celebrities, they're not just pictures, but I can see them and I can imagine them and I can relate to them, what's in their backgrounds, what they're using. So yeah, totally love what you were saying there.
I think that's, yeah, we agree. We both agree. But I think on that example, I worked with a very big supermarket brand that begins with a T. And one of their, they were all about followers, right? They wanted to sort of get the biggest amount of followers on LinkedIn, which is great. But sometimes that can be seen as a vanity metric. And I'm sure all of you guys that work within different businesses get that from the top dogs. You know, they're like, we want the biggest amount of followers. And you go, well, why? You know, what is it that you want to get out of that? It's more about who is that follower that's so important. And what we did is we worked on one of their key events, which was Diwali, and they've got stores obviously all over the country, and all those stores are set up as communities. And I don't know if you knew this, but like they have people that go out there, speak to the community, that donate to the community and help the community. And they went and celebrated Diwali, and I said, well, why don't you just try and get all your stores who are celebrating it to take a photo outside the store, just, you know, celebrating the whole event, and push that on social. They did that, put it on LinkedIn. and it was their most highest engaged piece. And it was a photo that was just taken from an iPhone. And when you're telling a massive brand like that, that you can see some huge engagement from something like that, it sort of really helps with that change, you know, and it's super, super valuable. It sometimes takes a bit of evidence to get to that level from a C-suite, you know, to really help them say, oh, actually, this could work. But what it does, as I mentioned, it drops that guard of that corporate image and it shows you're more in touch, just as we mentioned just before.
I think that's really interesting how you touched on the community piece as well, because traditionally as marketers, we look at like the personas of our audience and sort of putting it down to one person. But I think a lot more now people are looking at targeting a bit of a community as their audience rather than just one specific type of person. So when you're sort of establishing like a key audience for your content, is this something that you're seeing that you're adopting a lot more now rather than just putting it onto one sort of persona?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. In other businesses I've worked in, we've always worked with personas. So before I worked in retail and e-com, and we had shopping personality types, and that's how we would target people on spending habits and that kind of thing. But at PensionBee, we look at audiences and communities in different ways. So we've got our over 50s audience, we've got responsible investors, we look at women as a target audience, and we also look at the self-employed, and all of their needs are very different. So the self-employed, for example, I don't know how many of you in this room are, but you've got different times in the year where you're contributing into your pension. You're looking at the end of the tax year or the beginning of the next tax year. Your income is much more up and down. It's much more fluid. You've got times of the year where you can invest some more money rather than other times. You're not able to be a part of auto enrollment. So for us, their habits and their needs are very different. So yeah, it would be completely wrong for us to look at it as personas.
Everything I say is kind of going to relate back to music because that's my big experience I have. So in terms of, you know, marketing and how we target community, it's actually quite a central part of all of our campaigns. So I'll give an example. When I worked with Little Mix for 4 years, so it was over like the Shout Out to My Ex Glory Days era campaign, and they have I'm sure you see on socials, their audience, the mixers, the directioners, is literally like a cult following. So they actually do your marketing for you. So what we would do is we'd always like try and reward them and make them feel like they're part of the campaign. So even with CRM, that's a big, I'm so passionate about CRM, by the way. CRM is like my love language. So it's just like, I love CRM. I love mailers. I could sit there and do mailers all day. I just love that because I feel like it's, you know, you literally have a tool to market to when you have something to drop. People that are really loyal, they're like your cult followers because there's a reason why they subscribe to you. So when you have something to drop, when you have information, when you have news, they're the loyal ones that want to engage. They want to have updates. They want to have the news. So with Little Mix, one of the priorities was also developing their CRM database. And I think it got over to like over 100K subscribers when I, you know, developed the strategy to grow it. But we would do stuff like on their birthdays. We'll make sure they add their birthdays. We'll send them a special mailer. Before we have releases, we'll send them like exclusive behind the scenes pictures. Little nuggets that they would use to go and promote online. So I think that was really key because they felt like they were part of the family. They felt like they were like the fifth member of the band. And that was a priority for us. Like we are in music, we have the roles, it's called like audience development. So they don't even call it a digital marketing manager. They call it audience development manager or community manager because it's literally about the community. It's literally about building that cult following, nurturing them and making them feel like they're a pivotal part of all your campaigns.
I love that so much. We were talking before about your favorite member of Little Mix as well, but I'll let you keep that a secret. You guys can guess on that one. I'm probably biased because my whole job's a community. I run an online community. I'm really lucky to work with some of the UK's biggest brands and kind of consult them on how they can also build community. And to me, the difference between a community and a follower is that a community advocates for what you do. So, for example, where is it? Is it Costa that has the Toblerone hot chocolate this year? Anyone know? Yes, we're getting nods. Awesome. I love hot chocolate, and I thought the Toblerone hot chocolate was totally delicious, and so I advocated for it. I'm telling you guys right now, I'm literally advocating right now. When I got home, I told my partner how yummy it was, and that is the difference between me just being like a follower or someone who regularly purchases or might pop in or observe what Costa are up to, and a community member who's like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. So as you were saying, now I am going to market on your behalf. Again, like totally biased because it's all I do and what I love. But for me, 2023 and beyond, the only everything that me and my clients are focusing on is how can we change our audience from audience members to community members who care, they engage, but more than that, they talk about what we do and become like mini marketers for us. So yeah, I think community should be everyone's focus.
I think that's really interesting as well in terms of the making them market for you sort of links to the influencer side of things. So in terms of influencers, they generate so much money. I think it's something like £11.7 billion that they're due to make like next year or something. It's ridiculous. But one thing I think we've seen a lot of the drop off in is those big sort of influencers and a bit more of a rise in the micro influencers. Do you think that's something we can expect a little bit more in sort of 2023, like more realistic influencers rather than the big like Gucci influencers and that sort of stuff?
I will go first. I follow a awesome girl on TikTok, and if you're on TikTok, as most of you are, and you're into marketing and you want to follow really educational people, her name is Coco Moco. The universe like did her a solid on that one because it's a really cool name. And she did this awesome TikTok that went viral, and I've seen loads of people stitch it, and other marketers talk about it, even on like LinkedIn and other platforms. And she did this whole piece about how consumers don't want influencers who are full-time influencers anymore. So really interesting what you're saying there about the future of influencing being, again, that really boring word, authenticity. We want to see people who are like us, who have messy bedrooms, or their office is in the corner of their kitchen or their living room. They don't have, a mansion. We've even seen like Kylie Jenner on TikTok. She's doing her makeup in her car, even though she has like $1 million like glam room and studio in her house. So it's really interesting to see how even celebrities are like, oh yeah, right, I need to be more normal, more down to earth, because that's really what people are wanting from us. But yeah, Coco Moco, really awesome video on that one. Yes.
I think for us, micro influencers in the financial services industry doesn't really work in quite the same way. When I worked in retail and e-com, I was bored of influencers. Maybe that's a really bold statement, but like 5 years before, I felt like there was no value in them anymore, and everyone could see through the fact that we're paid to be doing these things. But in what we do, we've seen a real rise with our influencers that we work with have financial expertise and background. So they were accountants beforehand, or they're financial coaches. They know their stuff, and people, the communities around them trust them because they know what they're talking about. And I think what works for us, in the same way with authenticity as a thread throughout this, is that when they come on the podcast or they're talking or they come to our roadshows and represent, not only are they actually Pension Bee customers, so they are advocates because they use the brand, but they share their own personal experiences of how they failed with their own finances when they've got themselves into debt, or they've struggled with their mental health and well-being. And these are people that are experts in their field. They're CEOs of big companies, and they're still letting you know that, hey, I'm still a real person. I've struggled in quite the same way. So I think that's how it works for us.
I think in respect of influencers, we have what we call you have a CEO, right, in businesses, and looking at it from a LinkedIn perspective, we call the CEO over the past 3 years the Chief Empathy Officer, right? So like it's all about sort of bringing that guard down, but they were also becoming influencers in themselves, but not just from a C-suite level. It was like people who were heading up departments. So let's focus on sustainability. I've been working with businesses over the past 2 months on COP27, right? So a lot of businesses have turned up, and they've got people who necessarily aren't running departments, aren't heading up huge companies or huge teams. They're just people who are employees, and they care about sustainability as an issue. So that has been huge. And again, I feel like it needs a bit of what you were talking about, Brooke. It needs a different name than influencer for maybe us, because they're not doing it for money, or they're not doing it to become famous. Like everyone wants to be an influencer. They're doing it because they actually are passionate about it. And I think if we would say, well, can you do this as a full-time job? A lot of them would probably go, I don't know, actually. I just enjoy talking about it. And they grow that sort of following, the community, which I love, by the way, that is so important and imperative to some of the biggest brands who are really getting it right on the platform.
Definitely, and that sort of links back into all the things we've touched on about that authenticity piece as well, and people being authentic and us not wanting to look up to those influencers now that do just work for the money. But in terms of the sort of B2B brands and the B2B influencer side of things, have you seen like an increase in B2B brands using influencers to boost awareness a little bit more, or do you think that's something that will be a little bit less included for businesses as we go into
100%. Like
oh yeah,
100%.
go on.
Yeah, so like I think, yeah, like using the business influencers. If you're, I mean, you're probably a great example. I keep looking at you because that's probably so good for it. Like it's like on the platform, if you've got people that are talking about it, brands are using these people to make them champions, right? Internal champions in the business to go and talk about their brand and talk about who they are. But that only adds into a line of your content strategy, right? Do not just pin the whole piece down on that one person, because I wouldn't want that as a pressure, as the pressure on me from a brand saying you need to do and speak about this. But like, if you can get that right mix within the right messaging and the right audience and about something that people care about, right? And relating it back to what you want as a business at the end of the day is really, really important. And rather than just sort of getting these people just to go out there, or as a lot of big businesses do, like just pay for these massive people like Hollywood celebrities just to roll out and say something. And again, you're just like, oh, okay, nice one. You've got Brad Pitt. It's good to look at, and that's it, So I think we're seeing a big change in that, and we're getting a lot more influencers representing brands in good ways.
So can I quickly answer,
Yeah.
not the B2B one, the one before? I'm going to answer it, so I don't have the experience, I'm so sorry. I'm going to answer it as a consumer in terms of like, how I view influencers and how I consume their content. I think it's so essential for an influencer to appear like they're very real. And I used the example when we spoke before about one of my peers, Melissa's wardrobe, and I think she's an amazing influencer. I think she's incredible. I think she will literally... Yeah, she's amazing. But she'll come on Instagram stories or TikTok with her hair messy, complain about the price of bread, talking about the cost of living crisis, but we know you got money. But you relate to your audience, your demographic, you make them feel like they're involved, even the way she speaks to them. I think it's amazing. So you have the mix between obviously your lifestyle and whatnot, but then you have the authentic side where it's actually quite fun hearing her complain, or that there's other influencers that come on and complain, but in a very jokey way. It's not like they're, trying to take the piss out of the struggle. Sorry for language, but it's not like they're trying to, exaggerate their struggle, but they do have that relatability, and you feel like you're really connected to them. You're like, yes, this is so true. So I think in that sense, being really real and feeling like you've got that connection with your audience is essential. But I think even in terms of brand partnerships, I think that's one thing that we were speaking about before. I think it's so important when someone's writing for a brand, they're posting about a brand, and then suddenly they have a partnership. So I'm more invested and I trust it more than it's just suddenly like some random, how did this connect? It doesn't make sense. And your audience know that. They know when it's not authentic. They know when it's been fake. So they're not going to really buy into other things you're selling. So I think I love it when I see someone's, a really organic and authentic interest in a brand turn into a partnership, and you're like, you almost feel like you're part of the journey, so you champion them as well. Sometimes when I don't even care about it, I just comment so it looks like they've got loads of engagement. So I'm like, yes, this is amazing. Like, just because you feel like, yes, I know they wanted this, and I'm really like part of this journey, and you want to root for them.
I think it's really interesting to look at it from the sort of authenticity point of view, because especially on LinkedIn, there's a lot of the sort of personal branding stuff, and sort of going back to the CEO stuff. There's been examples of doing the authenticity in a bad way, and I don't know if any of you guys saw it on LinkedIn, but when, I can't remember, you remember it better than me, but the CEO that fired everyone, and then not fired everyone.
Oh, the guy that had to make all the people redundant, and then he cried.
Yeah. How do you think, what's the sort of tipping point between being almost too authentic, it's fake?
I mean, like if I could have £1 million, like, or £1 for each time people said about that sort of stuff, which is great. What do you put on LinkedIn? What don't you put on LinkedIn? Like, you do what suits you, and I think you can overshare or you can undershare and get it right. I think what he did was hard, right? That is super hard, and he showed compassion. As I mentioned about a chief empathy officer before, like that is super important. So like he showed compassion. He didn't want to do it, and yes, automatically. And I think you would have got this on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If he'd have put that on there, he'd have got the same type of reaction. Some people are going to agree, some people are going to disagree with what he did. What I did think he did is he let his guard down, and again, as you say, authenticity is running through this so much. But I think, you can get it wrong. And when you get it wrong, everyone in this room right now are super savvy to it, especially when it comes to big brands. When they get it wrong, they get it really wrong. And I love that everyone jumps on that and makes a noise about it. And I speak to businesses where you've got to say, you can't just sweep it under the carpet. You've got to just think, we need to approach this and try and deal with it. For me, super exciting the past week has been this Joe Lycett and Beckham thing, right? Like that has been huge. Like how you know, what is going on? Like, how's Beckham going to deal with that? Has he dealt with it? I don't think he actually has dealt with it yet, has he? Joe Lycett did. Well, it was fake money, but he's donated it all to charities, which is amazing.
Shredded Beckham's cover.
Oh yeah, he did from Attitude, yeah. But I don't think Beckham has come back to that yet, unless I've missed something. But right, there we go. Love that. See that passion, because people are waiting, and like, you can't just nowadays as a business and a brand, you can't just run away from these things. Be honest with yourself, be truthful with yourself, turn up, because everyone in this room will be more respectful of that than they will about you running away. 100%.
I think that leads us into the agile topic as well. And if anything that we've learned over the last 2 years is that we have to expect the unexpected. God knows we don't know what is going on anytime at the moment. But with all the sort of like social and political and economical changes that are happening like all the time, how valuable do you think it is to make sure that you are staying authentic but still being reactive to that sort of stuff as well? Anyone?
Yeah, I think this is the core of what we do. As a business, we've been hit by inflation, geopolitical tensions in the Ukraine, and China's supply chain disruption. So for us, it's been like a triple whammy coming off the back of COVID. So we're getting customers saying to us, you know, the benefit of our product is you can see your pension in real time on a daily basis when you've used to been seeing it once a year. And now they're like, where's my money gone? And we, you know, we can't do something flippant like the CEO of Brewdog and have an anti-Qatar campaign. We have to be honest about market performance. And that is one of our values at Pension B, honesty. And our hope and aim is that through being honest now, when times are really hard for our customers, that when times are good, hopefully in the next couple of years, we can share that with them then too. And I think, yeah, we just have to try and be as honest as possible of why you may be seeing these things. And for us, it's an education moment, but we're trying to see it as a positive. That means people are engaging with their finances. We want to improve financial literacy and education, and this is an opportunity to do that.
I love that. I love the like value of honesty there as well. And I think that brands living by their values is something really important and something that consumers almost expect at this point. Back on that like agile piece and being reactive, I think that now, especially if you're like super social based, being like agile with your strategy and allowing it to move and almost planning for expecting the unexpected is super important. You know, Twitter is a ship that has changed dramatically in the last 4 weeks. And if I asked you a year ago, you know, what do you think that Twitter is going to look like in a year? Are you going to say that Elon Musk has set it on fire? Probably not. So almost like, yeah, expecting the unexpected, I think, is so important. And that piece that you shared on Brooke, on working through those values and really showing those and sharing those, almost moving with your consumer, remembering that business is people and people are there to be served. So I really love what you shared there.
I think that brings us back quite nicely to the Christmas advert side of things as well, and with the recent John Lewis advert where they've talked a lot more about what they do rather than what they sell, which is a bit different for them. Do you think that sort of strategy is going to be something that we see a lot more of in 2023 as well?
Yeah, not to keep harping on about our own values, but we've got 5 at Pension B, and that's quality, simplicity, innovation, love, and honesty. I think I said that. I've got the 5 there. Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong. And we try as best we can to have those running through the business at every point. So if you reach out to our customer service team, we hope they show that you love in our communication through content, whether that's the podcast or videos or editorial. We want to make it simple and accessible. And yeah, in terms of innovation, we invite our customers to give us feedback on how we can innovate our product. You know, we had feedback previously that we wanted to make a sustainable pension product. We listened to our customers, we created that. We then get more feedback saying it's not quite right. And we're thinking, okay, how can we make it better? Like, I think that's the only way that it's going to work. And I don't think you can do it as a marketing strategy. I think people can see through that. You know, we're not the only pensions company in the industry, but the thing that sets us apart is our values. And I think if we lose that, then we just become another player.
I think what I'm saying, going a bit back to the agile piece and then this piece, is that like what I have seen is a lot of brands now seem to be split down the middle with that authenticity piece, but also some which are going down the by God, we want to make a good advert. We don't care what it means or what it's about, but if it looks good and it gets everyone sharing it, then that's a winner. Like that's what a lot of brands like maybe Brewdog will do, right? They want to sort of get that sort of, I wouldn't say anger as such, but they get people sort of talking about it and sharing it. And they probably didn't think, you know, we want this, we want to look at this stat behind it, or how many beers we do sell off the back of that. They just want that virility of an ad. And if you look at, have you all seen the Belvedere vodka advert recently that Daniel Craig did? I don't know if any of you've seen that. Yeah. Like, it's a bit of a what the fuck, if you don't excuse my French, you know, type of an advert, but it's awesome, right? And not necessarily is it out there to sell vodka, but it's a good advert that people are thinking, this works really, really, really well, and it's really cool. You know, it's got Rita Ora on it, it's got like a mint soundtrack, and like that is just, it got people sharing and talking about it. And I wouldn't say necessarily they're always going out there just to say, we need to make sure we sell millions of bottles of vodka off the back of it, you know, and I think it is that bit of a mix, really. That's what I think, anyway.
Okay. And with all the sort of different forms of content that we are exposed to nowadays, and like you said, getting people to talk about it and reusing it, do you think things like TV adverts and print, like, and in, what is it? Yeah, that one, out of home marketing. Do you think that's going to take a bit more of a backseat as we move into 2023, or do you think it's going to sort of come back up into the forefront?
Well, really quickly, and then I know these guys have got some great stuff to say on it. I think it's a mixture, right? I mentioned the BA campaign recently. That just screams authenticity, but it just shows that out-of-home advertising looks just as good when you just put in a picture on your social because you appreciate the art behind it, you appreciate the copyright behind it, the advertising. You're doing the job for you, you know, the advocates in respect. I mean, it was a post that was shared as well today, I think was the Meta one. You shared that, didn't you? It was great. Like that I've seen everywhere on the billboard that is in the middle of Piccadilly Circus. Everyone's sharing these sort of 3D or metaverse style ads, and it just shows you can get it right. If the content and the messaging is good and the creative behind it is good, why can't they complement each other? You know, simple as that.
Sorry to hog the mic. But yeah, for us, TV is a really important part of our channel mix. We've had 2 TV ads go out this year, one at the beginning of the year featuring our customers talking about why they joined PensionBee. It's a yellow chair campaign. You can have a look at that on YouTube. And then more recently in September, no, just because I think it's interesting that for us, we like want to keep our customers at the front and center of our above the line activity. And then in September, we released Believe in the Bee, where we feature everything from our partnership with Brentford to our CEO in a cafe as a self-employed woman. And it's been great for us. Our unprompted brand awareness has grown by 10% across the year. And so whilst it's not the only channel delivering for us, it's an important part of the channel mix. And I think maybe because for us, our customers are at home and that's a trusted medium, it works quite well. But yeah, out of home is also something else as well as digital.
I feel like I remember when we had the conversation and we were talking about adverts, and I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen an advert in a long time. But it's actually really important to remember that I'm not the only demographic people are targeting. So I feel like, you know, obviously I'm on the social media platforms because I have to, and I have to immerse myself in it, and I scroll through ads and whatnot. But even since we've spoken, I actually went to go and look at adverts because it feels so wholesome. Like even when you're watching, you know, channels 1 to 5 or whatever downstairs in your living room, and the adverts come on, and you might run quickly to the microwave and come back, and it's the noise. It feels nice. Like I actually forgot the feed, and when we spoke about it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually true. Like I actually watched the John Lewis one with the skateboard one. I watched that one, and then I watched the I think it was Audi with the carrot. Oh yeah. Yeah, so I actually did that this week after we spoke. So I just went on YouTube just watching adverts, and I was like, oh, I love this so much. But yeah, no, it's important to remember that we are not the only demographic, and I think even with a lot of my campaigns, sometimes we're like under 25, but there's actually a lot of people that exist outside of that. So even with
I like little mate.
So even with like there was, because on a wide variety of our artists, they'll say like we don't need to prioritize Facebook, but we do find that, you know, a lot of like Latin America, they're on Facebook. They're really on Facebook. Like, so when we want to do ads and stuff, when we want to target them, it's important to be very inclusive in your campaigns and try not to alienate anyone or forget about any section just because you don't relate to it. So even with me, I went away and thought about adverts, and even when I went to the living room, mum was watching an advert, and I'm like, okay, so if they wanted to target a 60-year-old, there she is. So, you know, they can include her in their campaign. So I think I don't see it going, because it is still a big a central part, and I wouldn't want to because it's nice. But I do, you know, I do get, you know, how people are kind of diverting their attention to like short form and, you know, attention grabbing stuff. But hopefully they don't, because I really do think it's amazing.
I very much agree. And it's really funny, John, that you mentioned my LinkedIn post today. So that was actually an ad, which is fun. So like really interesting, and like that conversation on B2B influencers, and I do not consider myself an influencer. I much prefer the term content creator. But yeah, so if you haven't seen, if you're in like the marketing space on LinkedIn, and this is not part of my ad, Meta have launched a like really big billboard, a 3D billboard in Piccadilly Circus. Yeah. I'm not from London, so I get all the landmarks confused. Piccadilly Circus, and it's 3D, like the box opens and like all these characters come out, and it's to promote their Meta Quest 2. I've done an ad for them, so I probably should know. But it's like a VR headset, and it was really funny because I posted that today, and their whole campaign is centered around this like mega like 3D in real life ad. But yeah, there's a whole B2B influencer campaign on LinkedIn and Twitter to take that offline and put it, online. So really interesting to see how that connects to that B2B influencer piece. I love sharing like billboards, out of home advertising on my socials and sharing it with our community. I think it's a real conversation starter. And I think a lot of brands, like you were saying with Brewdog as well, guys, that like, we're not creating out-of-home ads anymore or TV ads anymore just to be on TV or just to be on the side of the bus or the billboard, but we're creating them hoping that they're going to be shared on social, because the opportunity for reach and that social mobility is going to be so much bigger than just, an ad on a random street in Cheltenham, where I live, for example. So yeah, really interesting how that's kind of a full circle conversation. But yeah, I too don't think it's going anywhere. And I love how we had a little round table, and Rami was saying he hadn't seen the ad in ages. And I think because we're so immersed in things like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, for example, and in the next year, a lot of them have also announced that they're going to be starting subscriptions with ads. So Netflix, for example, I think this month they've announced or released a new subscription for a lower price, but you have ads on your screen during your movies and stuff. So I think if anything, we're going to see it. It's gonna come back, retro vintage out of home vibes. But I think that's exciting. It's a new way and a new place to be creative, and more for me to share on LinkedIn. So yeah, super cool, I think.
No, definitely. And I think
sorry, just I saw that ad on Twitter. I think it was Matt Navarra who does that social media. He's like, when I saw, now you're saying it, it's like that was probably an ad, but it's actually incredible. It looked like they were coming out of the bit. I don't know if you saw it. It's an amazing ad, and that's an example of out of home that they've done so well.
But to your point, I think like were Meta out there mainly for like the social shares or key for footfall, as in people walking past? I'd love to know that goal or that KPI for them, because like I wonder if they were like, yeah, we want more people to share this online than we do, than we're bothered about people walking past it and looking at it and going, oh, that's cool, and then walking off,
Yeah. And also, sorry, after that conversation, I did realise that okay, said. Yeah, it said, I did realise I actually do love adverts, but I love adverts in the cinema. So one thing about me is I will get there. I don't care who I'm going with. You can be late if you like. I'm going to get there. As soon as the screen is off, like I'm sitting there watching every ad because I just love it. And I start writing a list of all the films I'm going to watch. I am the person that consumes every single cinema advert. And when they used to have the orange thing as well, like Orange Wednesdays, whatever, I used to be the one that I am the target audience. Like I love adverts in the cinema. So that when we had that conversation, it did take me back to like, oh, let me watch adverts at home because I actually do like adverts.
I think it's really funny to think of like the nostalgic thing with the TV adverts, and I like to think that they are going to come back with the likes of like Netflix and stuff, using those sort of services and stuff, which is really interesting. If we take it back or forward, I guess, to the sort of metaversey side of things and Facebook, obviously it's sort of an area that is new to us and it's new to explore for everyone, but there was a study earlier this year that found that like 77% weren't actually sure if they wanted Facebook to create the metaverse, and with things like NFTs and Web3, there's a lot of like area of like, I guess, like, it's the area of unknown, isn't it? We don't really know what it is. So do you think there's going to be like a reluctance in terms of marketing when exploring those sort of new channels, or do you think they're really going to come through and make it through to the foreground?
I'm happy to start. I actually read a Finfluence report from LinkedIn that was saying, around NFTs and crypto being the future of finance. And it kind of made me feel very apprehensive and nervous to be talking about something unregulated and with risk. This is how you know I've been in finance for too long now. And I think for us as marketers, if I'm just thinking about my day to day, there's no way that we could start thinking about that yet because it's unregulated and we're in a regulated industry. So I'm going to keep an eye on it, but I don't think it's coming my way anytime soon.
It's so interesting because when they started doing the whole NFT stuff and I was seeing it online, I was like, oh my God, not another thing that I have to like understand. I really don't want to have to deal with this. And some of the labels would start talking about it in terms of their campaigns, like let's include this, and it just died out. It just kind of like no one's really talking about it anymore. So I'm just kind of glad about that. But I did still kind of do a bit of my knowledge to understand a bit. But it's just kind of like, how many things do we need to? It's just why.
I think I have no idea what the metaverse is. I don't know what an NFT is. I wouldn't even say it's because of my old age, because I don't consider myself to be old. But I think the biggest problem that marketers or brands will face is like lack of education. So when we had our roundtable, I think it was you, Rami, sorry to keep picking on you. And we were talking about how like even now or soon you can get a McDonald's in the metaverse. And like, how do I eat that? Does it come to my house? Like, do I eat it virtually? But if I was educated as to what that was, then maybe it's something I would buy into. Maybe I would order it to my house. But I think I saw a stat online. I was reading an article. Don't usually read articles. I was preparing for this panel. And it was something like through a survey of like however many thousand people, only 1% could confidently say that they knew what the metaverse was. So I think if like the biggest obstacle is definitely going to be that lack of education, because like I don't know what it is. I don't know where to go to learn what it is. I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to market there. And I immerse myself in marketing and socials. You know, it's our whole job. And if we don't know how to use it, then who does? I mean, any experts here, please educate me. But yeah, definitely that lack of education and you know how to get McDonald's.
In terms of the metaverse, I only know about a lot of the stuff because I go to Facebook. Always have these workshops for partners and people that people at labels and that agencies like mine that are partners. So I work with Facebook on every single campaign. That's the only reason why I can confidently say I really understand it. If I didn't, I wouldn't. I don't know what that was. maybe it was a metaverse. It was a metaverse. But yeah, I wouldn't call NFTs. No, but the metaverse, I can only say I confidently understand it. But then even sometimes when I'm going and trying to do stuff, it is a bit complicated, and I don't really know why they've done that. But I only can say that I understand it because there's been a lot of training and their workshops, but then that's quite alienating to someone that doesn't have that access, that wants to do the market, the rollouts and stuff, and utilize all the tools they have. And because it's just a bit confusing. It just makes it a little bit harder for people.
Oh no, I was going to say, I guess as well with the current backdrop, how realistic people can't afford their everyday real lives, let alone thinking about this alternate metaverse world. So maybe it's just the wrong time to launch something like that.
Great point, actually. I also think, like, quickly, just to finish off this point, is that, like, I speak to the agencies and clients I'm speaking to, they're thinking this is purely for Meta, and I would love to hear from these guys and what you guys think about this. They're thinking, I think they've spent something like 80, if Mark Zuckerberg or someone from Facebook is on this call listening to me, there's a bullet just going to come straight. Wouldn't put it past him. It's like 80 billion or some obscene amount of money has been spent on the metaverse from Facebook. And a lot of my clients and the agencies I've spoke to are thinking, we'd rather them put that money into their ads. How can they make their ads, their platform better, get smarter, rather than focusing on something which, let's face it, could be a bit of a trend that could die out. I mean, like the McDonald's thing, and then the Burberry and Nike. I know Nike are into Web3, and I'm like, whoa, what's like that? And like Nike usually very, very good at that, and they're launching that whole brand through that. But it is a learning thing, and maybe I'm speaking for myself here, just way too behind on all this, and it just seems like nuts. just nuts.
I think it's just like a cloud of uncertainty for all of us. And then obviously with all of the uncertainty and like the political and economic climate as well, it's probably, like Brooke said, not the right time to launch metaverse.
But it links in with crypto. If you think about the crypto
Okay.
metaverse, like, and then when you're talking about the FS world, like I work with some clients in Dubai, and they are super focused on that. I think Dubai even said that they want to be something like this, the first metaverse city on NFT, or something crazy. And like, it's all within that FS sector, which is really interesting how that's become a thing.
It's very interesting. So I think sort of round off the evening, if marketing has taught us anything in the last year, is that we really have to stay adapted to sort of current climate and expect the unexpected. So if we pop up the next Slido and get you guys involved again, what do you think is the top skill that marketers are going to need to carry into 2023 to sort of help them through the year? And then you guys.
For me, it's flexibility. It's thinking about your customers and their needs right now against this really uncertain backdrop. When I started at PensionBee last year, I didn't think I'd be talking about the war in Ukraine and inflation, interest rates, and 4 different chancellors and 3 prime ministers. So, you know, things change quite a lot. And so I think you've got to stay flexible with it, because for us, all of those socio-political and geopolitical things impact the world we are in.
I would say just, you know, what's helped me year on year with all of these new trends and stuff that have come and gone. Just having a lot of knowledge has been the biggest thing, because I think when you have a lot of knowledge, like I read like music, I like just so many different things in terms of campaigns that have worked, how they've done rollouts, and get inspiration from that. I think the more knowledge you have, you're able to be a bit more creative and come up with these ideas that you probably wouldn't know exist. So there's features on different platforms that you might not, you know, be aware of that can support some of your campaigns. So I would say knowledge would be one of the biggest ones, and obviously being creative as well.
I love those answers. I also love seeing some of the ones up there. People first, community. One that I really love is human first, brand second. Because I was going to say empathy. I think, you know, not just this year, but oh my God, the last few years have just been exhausting. As Brooke, you described, it's been thing after thing after thing, not just here in the UK, but like for everyone all over the world. And really being in tune with how your audience are feeling about that and how you can help them. And even again, back to Brooke, what you were saying about how you and your team, your company really live and show your values. I think it all goes back to what consumers and people are looking for right now. So yeah, I think empathy. What do your audience want from you? How can you best serve them? And that prioritization is probably the top skill that I think.
I think it's great to see that I'm last and I'm watching all these, so everything on here is great. Apart from NFT and metaverse, only joking. I think like adaptability, which has popped up there, is super important. But I think transparency is, as I mentioned before, being open and honest and communicating with your consumers or your clients or whoever it may be. I think that is a super important skill, which again falls in line with everything you guys have said. Like I completely agree, the empathy piece, but also being able to turn left instead of right. Like again, like being able to have that opportunity to change and shift, because businesses have done that more than ever, you know, in the past 4 or 5 years, especially since COVID onwards. Like they've got to change their tone of voice like that, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of what you guys have put up there as well relates back to what you guys have said. So the adaptability, the creativity as well, and being able to turn left to right. I think it's just really rolling with the punches and taking what hits you, really. So if we move on to our final Slido, and just a little one to wrap up the evening, I'm really keen to hear from you guys what you think, based on our sort of conversation tonight and what you already know. What do you think is going to be the top predictions for marketing in 2023? What do you think is going to be really popular? What do you think might die out? Give us your thoughts.
Respect to LinkedIn, whoever did that.
Cool. And then whilst this is going on as well, we'll sort of open the audience up for a bit of a Q&A. So for those of you that might have some budding questions, feel free to pop your hand up or something, and we'll go from there. Yeah, shoot.
I have a question around how you can convince brands to jump on trends and create authentic content while it's still relevant. So an issue that I have
is that I work with a lot of corporates. On board.
Great question, and I struggle with the exact same thing that you do. So it's weird because sometimes you feel like a divorce lawyer when you go into some companies because like you're dealing with so many other people, and multi-threading is key. But I think it's finding that internal champion if you can, if you've got anyone there that you're speaking to that you know believes in that same goal that you've got, or like you say, you want to shift them to this new trend that's going on. That is important to then utilize them to try and push up as far as you can to the CEOs or the CMOs or whoever it is you need to influence. But again, like, yes, case studies are important, but like evidential stuff is so important. If you've got a competitor, if they've got a competitor and they're doing it, there is nothing that gets the CMO to wake up so quick. Then you just show them that sort of stuff because they're like, well, if they're doing that, I sort of want that. Or you're just showing them that piece of evidence there that I think is super important. But I think it's trying not to sort of run before you can walk as well. Like, you know, sometimes it does take a long time. And I understand if you've got a key trend, which is like you need to get it out ASAP, it's a struggle. But I think if you can try and get in there earlier, like sometimes that does benefit as well. But I hope that sort of helps in some respects.
Oh no, I was going to say, I think it's important to understand the brand DNA. Like as a business, we don't really jump on any trends, but I don't think that negatively impacts us necessarily by not being trend based, because I think it goes back to all of the things we've been talking about. It's like, it's not authentic for us to be based around trends. Like for us, it's people's largest or second largest financial asset. If we were jumping on every trend, it doesn't really work in quite the same way. But I think, you know, if there was a trend that was like core to one of our values, for example, then it would make complete sense for us to do that. Like we are on TikTok, as I said, which seems funny in a way, but actually we use it to talk about things that people want to know. So maybe trying to relate it back more to their values or their brand DNA.
And explain how, but if they're not reactive, they're going, like, you probably do this. If they're not reactive, they're losing that audience, they're losing that potential, I don't know, client or whatever it may be. So they need to be quicker on the ball with this stuff. And like I say, evidencing that if you can with a case study from another brand or something is so important if you can do that.
We've got some questions up on the board as well. I think they both sort of follow a similar theme, but a lot about how keeping up on trends but without being cringe, and also if you're not down with the kids, which is equally a little bit cringe. What are your sort of opinions on that?
I'm intrigued to see, is this across all social platforms or LinkedIn in general? Whoever asked that question, if they want to remain anonymous, that's absolutely fine. But I'm going to pass this down to the guys.
When I was chatting to Rami beforehand, she made a really good point about downloading all of the different new platforms just to try and use them. Like we're both saying, we downloaded Be Real, even though I don't use it and don't really know how to, but just to see what it is. I think there's something in that of playing around, trying to understand why so many people are adopting different channels.
I think it's so interesting because, you know, I was making this point. I made a joke earlier that I feel like I'm 31, I'm old, but I'm only saying that because in terms of my field, that where I work, everyone's like 20 or whatever. So I'm like, you know, the old woman in the group. But yes. But it's interesting because I do feel like when I think about it, why can't you be down with the kids? Why can't you immerse yourself? Like, why are you alienating yourself? Why are you trying to age yourself? I make these jokes, but there's so many people that are older on TikTok that do amazing, that have amazing content. It's not actually for, you know, it's not actually for kids and dance routines. Like I was literally looking at, like, I think it was Stacey, the one that went on X Factor. Anyway, Solomon. So she does like amazing like home decor. She's like making like Christmas, you know, content around that. So there's so much you can find on there. Literally, like I think they even said TikTok's kind of almost all overtaking like Google as a search engine. So even when I was abroad with my friend, she was looking for a hairdresser in Amsterdam and she went on TikTok and found one. So it's not just, you don't have to use it in one way. I don't think you have to age yourself or say you're not. Once you just try, just download it, enjoy it for a bit, you'll see that even with TikTok, the algorithm kind of works around you. So if you engage in like home decor, or if you engage in cookery, or if you engage in like horse riding, you'll get delivered that content. So I think just try it out and see how it goes. I wouldn't try and age yourself or, alienate yourself to your own detriment.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Oh, sorry. So I'm a freelance social media manager. I could not do my job if I didn't know what was happening on every social media platform, every trend that was emerging. And that's awesome, but it's also super duper overwhelming. Trends, corn kid on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, if not, I've probably made you feel really old, and I'm really sorry. The corn kid was trending for a week, and then it was gone. And if you didn't get on it, then it's embarrassing if you got on it too late. So for me, what I do, there's not enough hours in the week to spend all my time on TikTok, Facebook, and know what's happening. So my best tip or recommendation would be to make information come to you. So you mentioned Matt Navarra earlier. He's one of my favorite marketers. He has an awesome newsletter. It's just Matt, and then his surname is Navarra. He's on every social media platform now. He has a newsletter where he summarizes every new feature on each platform. So you don't need to wait and see or Google it yourself. The Drum have an awesome creative daily newsletter. It will send you an ad of the day, a tip of the day, but just seeking out places that will send things to you. I'm sure you're all far too busy to be on TikTok for 10, 8, 12 hours a day to save audios and see what's trending and see what's cool or what's hip. So yeah, finding easy ways to make information come to you. It's absolute lifesaver. So Matt Navarra and the Drums newsletter, totally awesome, and they're free too, which is always good.
I'm loving everything, learning from you guys. I think everything that you just said there, following influencers, and also there's the publishers out there like Tech Insider for new social that's coming out and stuff like that. I found really useful. I'm looking at this top one. How can we make corporate content in an authentic and raw way without being cringe? I mean, listen, B2B content is tough. We've got to all agree with that, but it's trying to find that story within that. Sometimes it's not about the product itself. It's about the people. It's about the people that are making that product. So if you think about, I don't know, let's look at Rolls-Royce. I use this example all the time. For Rolls-Royce, they've got two areas where they've got a good employer brand, but also got an amazing product. And when you look at it, they people that are making that product and designing that product have been there for years and years and years. Big employer advocates, but the sort of attention to detail they put into each car that they build is the best form of marketing, because it's not really the car that they're selling, it's the people that is making the car that they're selling, right? Which is what works really well. So if you're trying to become across more authentic, look into the people. That is, again, we've been talking about it so much tonight, but that is so important. But also trying to turn that message around to be more about the company values, the people that are building the products and selling the products, rather sometimes just about the product in general.
Yeah, before I worked for PensionBee, I worked for an SME lending marketplace, and we're talking about business loans, and it's not the most sexy product to talk about, but some of, and Christmas is coming up and we know everyone's talking about that, but some or big events that were happening. And we'd showcase our customers, people that had come to us for loans and why they were using it for their businesses. And that often worked quite well. So how it transformed their business to help them with growth or help them survive during COVID and that kind of thing. And I think just asking what your business stance can be on a certain topic. Sometimes it's best to stay quiet and say nothing, but other times there's a different way you can approach it.
I think sorry, just in the interest of time, don't want to be a party pooper, but I want to get through a few more questions. So I quite like this one here about how to engage customers for a business that's a startup. So especially with, I guess, Rami, you've worked with artists who might not have that following. How do you think it's sort of a good way to raise that awareness for a startup? Or anyone else, if you want to pitch in?
That's a good question. In terms of artists that's developing, I think, so one thing we mentioned before on the call, with an artist, we always have this thing where we have your pillars. So even if it's a brand or artist, what are the key things you're interested in, or, what aligns with your brand? So if you're financial, money, wealth, giving back to charity or whatnot. So your key drivers. So for example, my pillars would be makeup, hair, marketing. Do you get what I mean? So adverts. So then in terms of my social output, I would plan them around the key pillars. So I think when you do that and it aligns with, you know, your vision and who you are as a brand or an artist, and you're creating content around that, so you'll see things that, you know, that you can tap in, that, you know, there might be trends that are relatable to makeup, or a trend that is talking about adverts, and I'm like, okay, cool, that aligns with my brand, so I'm gonna, you know, create content around that. But then even in terms of content plans, I will literally highlight for each artist, if they have like 4 pillars each week, this is what we need to be doing. So we're really intentional about it. It's actually I'm actually quite a strict person. So I sound like I'm nice, but actually, you know, so I'm like, this needs to be aligned in this plan, this needs to go out, you need to do content about this. So, and I think it's also about, you know, there might be things that you might not think, you know, people are interested in. So one of the artists I work with, he's a rapper, but he's moving to a house, but he loves home development. Like, he loves it so much. And he started a series and it's doing really well. So that's part of your pillars now, because that's part of your, you know, your personal identity, home development or whatnot. So it's just developing that and, you know, doing the content around that. But I think you mentioned it before about building, you know, focusing on following and whatnot. I think to every single artist, I always say, don't focus on the followers, just make sure your content is great, and look at it from a perspective like, if you weren't you, or if you weren't on your team, if you didn't know you, would you follow you? And a lot of the times they're like, oh, I wouldn't follow me, you know, like it's actually not that great. Like there's no compelling reason for me to follow you. What is the compelling reason for people to actually follow you and then be invested in what you've got to put out?
No.
Okay.
Right, we can go for another
I think
question.
it's about thinking about, as what Rami just said there, what makes you unique. Like, Pension Bee is now a scale up, but we were a startup, and that we're not having a pension provider isn't new, but what was new was how we were approaching it, and the human touch and the product, and showcasing people their finances in a different way. So I think it's remembering those things and making sure you showcase those, and thinking of the channels that will work for you. I try to keep an eye on what competitors are up to, but I don't let that limit my thinking. I'll think of brands that I like in general and see how I can apply any of that stuff to me. I mean, like, the team will laugh, but often when I'm listening to podcasts, I'll be listening to like grime music in the background, or like watching YouTube videos with Beta Squad, and like that will make me think of things that I'm like, oh, I didn't know that I could apply that to pensions, but here we are.
And this is so random as well. This is nothing to do with startups, but I don't eat Greggs that much, but I follow Greggs on social media because I love their social media. Like, they're actually quite funny, and I like the supermarkets when they're arguing with each other. So sometimes I'm just like, I'm so invested. I think it's great. So it's like, even like, I think you mentioned it on the call. It was quite interesting about, was it you? I mentioned about the self-checkouts. Where they run the advert. The Tesco campaign, that is so fast. I didn't see it when it happened, but that is enough for me to want to follow a brand. I think it could be like, yeah, you sell bread, but what is interesting? What is interesting that you put out? But what is interesting about you on your social media? So I even saw an ad, I think it was Indeed or one of these brands, but they have this trend on TikTok where you go to it's a split screen, so you go to one side, and it's like, I love my job, I don't love my job, and then everyone's going to this side. Then at the end, you see the manager going like this to them. So do you get what I mean? And that's just a recruitment page, but that's interesting content you will find funny, and you know, you can put that on social media.
Definitely. And I think a good sort of question to round us off at the end of the night is, what potential mistakes do you think we could avoid in 2023? So do you guys think there's anything that is absolutely detrimental if you did as a marketer in the next year? Or is there anything that you would almost like recommend doing as well?
I would say jumping on every trend. I think that's quite cringe. Yeah. Stop.
Don't jump on every trend.
Every single trend to see what, you know, pops, and I would suggest you don't.
That feeds back to our like conversations on authenticity and stuff as well. Only go back to what aligns with your pillars and that sort of stuff.
And when I was talking about the sustainability piece, for example, like, let's look at greenwashing, right? So many brands out there have been seen for greenwashing. If you are going to be on a trend or something huge globally, like sustainability, just make sure you know everything about it. People are going to listen to a scientist talking about sustainability, maybe rather than some guy that's just been thrown in front of the camera and they've just been told to talk about sustainability on behalf of a brand, right? And like, we could go further. We could talk about the boohoo, fast fashion, you know, the Kardashian thing with the private jet. You know, you can really get it wrong. And as I said, people will find out very quickly. So I think, you know, it's about making sure you really do know what you're talking about if you are going to really jump on something. Yeah.
It might not be, this might be coming to PR, probably, but I think talking about social causes when you don't care about them, that actually, I take that quite personal. And I think there was, stuff that went on in the pandemic when everyone wanted to write a statement. And I actually noticed some brands archive their posts. So I'm like, I've seen you. But I think doing that, I just don't like that. Like when you speak about a cause that you don't genuinely care about or doesn't align with your brand or whatever. I know it's weird because it's that you get the. You honestly.
Called out like
they could be like, why are you not speaking? So it's a bit difficult. It could be just retweet something. Someone else speaks, just do a retweet. Don't do an essay. We don't need that where you don't care about it. I think that's important.
Yeah, I guess one of the more recent things I can think of was two things. When the Queen died and suddenly every brand under the sun had a comment on it. And whilst I understand from a respect point of view, if you don't actually have a valid reason why you're commenting, you don't have to speak on every moment.
Yeah, but then exactly, but then they will be called out. And yes, when the Queen died, it was awful. But then it gets even worse when you see some brands trying to monetize that situation, and then people get found out so quick, and that's across any awful thing that's going on around the world or whatever.
That's not why it's funny. I'm sorry.
I'm interested.
It's funny, but it was like they did the post. So bad. But it was like they were trying to sell the clothes. So they were like, oh, look back at like RIP the Queen, but in the same post, get out of it inspiration. I swear on my life, I saw on Instagram. It was actually quite crazy. Yeah, type thing. It was actually quite bad. Yeah, I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. So I think that rounds us off quite nicely.
Great questions here.
We got so many, but
really good
people
questions.
won't be able to get home, John.
No, I understand. No, but I'm saying like if they just want to send them us,
He'll be here all night. So any
I'll be here
questions,
tomorrow or the day after because I work here. Please don't come.
But so we're gonna pop up on the slide in a minute. A little feedback survey. It doesn't take very long. Please do it. It's like 3 questions long. We just want to hear from you guys what you enjoyed tonight, what you didn't, and how we can improve, because we want you guys to come again. So we want to make sure that you enjoyed it. But yeah, and then obviously sort of moving on to my thank yous. Thanks guys so much for being our lovely panel. Then obviously a massive thank you to LinkedIn for letting us host tonight. It's a beautiful venue. They provided the food and everything as well. So definitely get yourself another drink on the way out. Yeah. But big thanks to LinkedIn as well. But yeah, that's sort of it from us. So feel free to grab yourselves another drink or head off if you've got a train to catch, whatever. But thank you all so much for coming. It's been lovely to see you. And yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you.